Just spray that on there so it's just like a fine mist, and then that rehydrates, and you can see now that's just like oil paint. And that's why this paint is so great to do this sort of thing, because what you want to do is this. You want to be able to push the paint around like this. You don't have to keep repainting. You want to be able to push the existing paint around the paper or the canvas like that. So you can take your edges like this edge and you can push them in that way, or you can push them back out that way, just like you would if you were working with oil, because the paint is wet and stays wet on the paper. Or if it dries, you just simply spray it again. If you're working in normal acrylics, that wouldn't be possible. You just have to keep remixing your paint on the palette all the time, and that is very painful. So let's have a look where we are. That shadow goes there. A lot of people do worry about painting glasses and even eyes and everything, but when you're doing a portrait, what you should do is just put everything in at the same time. Don't paint eyes and then glasses on top, or a face and then leave the eyes to the end or something like that. Everything is built up at the same time, like I'm doing now, from big shapes down to little shapes. We probably won't get down to much detail in this short session we've got, but what we will do is see the right proportions, because we're just going to get these big areas of light and dark, the correct scale with each other, and that will reveal already a sense of it being the right person. Now, as you can see, these eyes are too far apart at the moment. I'm just going to pull this one over, and I've put the slightest bit of blue in that eye as well. When you're changing something, and if you're only working with big brushes with light and dark like this, don't think about removing what you've got and then repainting. Just repaint. Don't think about removing at all. So in other words, the nose should be a little bit further across here. Just push it across. Just repaint it there. It's a little bit of... I'm just going to put this warm skin tone there, so I'll just take a little burnt sienna, mix it with white in this grey area of the palette, and in fact that just needs a little bit of a spray just to keep that nice and moist. And then I can put this slightly warmer tone down there like that to the mouth, and now I can start to see the proportions are heading in the right direction. Having moved that eye across a little bit there, it means that goes up there a tiny bit like that. That's already about in the right place, and there I can see the proportion is slightly better. Again, don't be in a hurry to make it look like the person. Just keep thinking about proportions all the time. It's always proportions. And really, it's just light and dark. You're just pushing light and dark around the canvas or around your paper, whatever you decide to work in, until you end up with the right proportions. There. That. You have to squint a little bit when you stand back to make sure that you're not focusing too much in a particular section, because you want to see the whole shape together rather than be focusing in one little area. Around here I've got too much light there, so that all is going to go. Down there, that's not too bad, and I can see the width of this portrait is about right now. Mouth is a bit dark. Take that back a little bit. Pull this darkness down here. Now, the chin is shaped by a dark bit that goes down to there. And we can see the proportions there getting much, much closer to the subject. We're nearly there as far as proportions are concerned. And we've just basically been using dark and light. I keep spraying this because I want to keep it really alive. And actually we're in the studio, and the studio lights do dry it out rather fast. So just keep spraying, and even the palette a little bit, so we can keep pushing those colours into each other. Now we want a little bit of light up on the hair, not too much. Just mix a little bit of white into this grey area, not too much, because we don't, even though in the photograph it looks quite light, we've got to be careful about knowing what our focus is. As we discussed in the earlier program about composition, the hair is certainly not the focus, so we're not going to pull that out too strongly. We just want to suggest that little bit of lightness up there like that. I'll take a little bit more of this burnt sienna and white here so that we can get this line a little bit better here. Down there, like that. Now, I'm not worrying too much about the detail of what's on this side, but it's quite nice to get a little bit of detail that's more accurate around the area of the nose and eyes, nose and mouth. And in this case, the proportion of light and dark is very, very close. You do not start in refining any area of detail until you're absolutely sure about proportion. Otherwise, you'll be going around in circles forever. You'll do the eyes, then you'll do the mouth, then you'll stand back and go, one's wrong, and you'll just be going round and round, pushing them around, never pulling them together. If you're sure you've got them in proportion and standing back, using the light and dark to see that proportion, then it's time. So I'm just going to drop down a little bit, not too much, just to see what we can do. We'll take a little bit of, let's go back to that blue. I'll just take a bit of this cobalt blue, put it in the grey, because obviously we don't have any strong colours, and just suggest a tiny bit of blue in the eye there, and in the eye there. And of course, the danger when you start with eyes is that it looks very artificial, sticking blobs of colour on like that. What you need to do, and why this paint is so good, is to keep that alive and work with the paint around it. So even without putting any paint on the brush, I can push this paint here up into the eye like that to soften down that shape. I can pull that round like that. So I can soften and pull the paint around without even having to remix colours. And that's what this paint is so good for. And now I'll just stick a little bit of light on this eyelid there. A bit more down there. A little bit in here. And it feels just like working with oils. The way that this paint, now it's just that little bit tacky, just that beautiful feeling that oils have when they're sort of just starting to go off a bit. And you can just push them around, and basically this is how I would tackle an oil painting if I was doing a portrait. Something you would never be able to normally do with acrylics. Now just shape that a little bit better there, just using this background dark down to there. For the glasses, we'll basically just pick out this end bit here, which is quite dark like that. We don't want to make it so dark it doesn't blend into anything else. We'll put a couple of little bits around like this. Don't overpaint them, just pick one or two little bits like that which suggest the glasses. This one here, wherever you see a little bit of darkness, and that's about all the darkness we've got there, because the rest is actually a little bit lighter. So I'll take just a bit of light blue on the brush and just put that tiny bit of lightness in there, and because this paint is nice and wet, you know, very oily, that just blends in like that. I can take my light brush and put that little bit of light we've got there, and then we'll just drop down on the mouth to finish things off. Obviously this isn't a highly finished portrait, but what I'm hoping to show you from this is how you sculpt this portrait with light and dark to produce the image you want. Now of course, once you've got to the point I'm just about at now where you can see it's the right proportion and very, very close to the subject, then it's easy to work with more detail. I'm just looking at the height of that mouth. It should be a little bit higher, so just take a bit of this burnt sienna, drop it in the grey, because we want a warm coloured mouth as opposed to this shape I've got here, this colour, and just put that bit of warmth there. A little bit darker on the other side, so a bit of blue into it just to make that a bit darker there, like that. Just pull those shadows around.